Algebra 2, Concept 47, Populations and Samples. So let's get some vocabulary definitions and formulas down. So here we're going to be talking about groups that we want to find out information about. So we'll start with the population. The definition of a population when we're talking about math and, gathering data is that is a group that you want information about. So maybe, you want information about the freshman class or the junior class or all the citizens in Liberty, Missouri, something like that. So to find out information about that population, often what researchers will do is that they will find a sample. A sample is a subset of that population. So maybe if you have 300 or 400 students in the 9th grade, to find out something about the population, you will take a sample of, let's say, 100 of them and ask them a question. Or maybe if you want to find out something of the population of the city of Liberty, those people that live there, you would maybe ask 500 of them. That's a sample. It's a subset of a population. Now we'll come back to the other two definitions, parameter and statistics, but right now let's go on to some of the problems. Let's talk about how to distinguish between a population and a sample, telling the difference. So the first question says identify the population and then identify the sample and describe it. So in the United States, a survey of 2,184 adults ages 18 and over found that 1,328 of them own at least one pet. So the first question is, what is the population? So what is the group that in this you are trying to find out information about? So this is, your population is those that have responded, so the responses of adults that in this case are age 18 and over. Now the sample, so the subset of that population was the ones that, the 2,184 adults that responded. So that's the sample that you got to see. Now it says describe that sample, so that just means talk about what happened. So in that sample you found out that 1,328 of those have at least one pet, so greater than or equal to one pet. And so that means the remaining, I just did a little subtraction, 856 then said that they did not own a pet. And that's how they responded. So that's how you distinguish between a population. So that's the group that you're studying, that you're trying to find someone about. So this is the adults ages 18 and over that responded. And then the sample is those 2,184 that did respond. Now let's look at the next one. So to estimate the gasoline mileage of new cars sold in the United States, a consumer advocacy group tests 845 new cars and finds that they have an average of 25.1 miles per gallon. So the population that we're trying to explore is the gas mileage of all new cars sold in the U.S. And then we'll look at the sample that we got. So gas mileage of all new cars sold in the U.S. Now the sample was the 845 new cars that were tested by that advocacy group. and the information that was found out about those cars. So the gas mileages of the 845 new cars tested. Now, if we describe that, what happened is that we found out the description is that of those 845 new cars tested, they had an average of 25.1 miles per gallon. Now go back up to the vocab and definitions section, and let's talk about the last two terms. So parameter and statistics. So when we start finding out things about populations and samples, we call those parameter and statistics. So a parameter is a numerical description of a population characteristic. So parameters describe populations. A statistic is a numerical description of a sample characteristic. So remember, the population is the entire group you want information about. The sample is the subset of that population that you poll or you test to find out about that general population. Because usually it's just too much to find out information about the entire population that you want to study. So drop down to the problems that are distinguishing between parameters and statistics. So on A, for all students taking the SAT in a recent year, so that's a test similar to the ACT, the mean average mathematics score was 514. So is the score a parameter? Does that mean, does it describe a population or a statistic? So remember, a parameter is a numerical description of an entire group that you want to find information about. A population, a statistic, is a numerical description of just a subset of that population. So the key word that I see is all. All the students taking the SAT. And that's the group that's mentioned. So this would be a parameter because it is a numerical description describing all of the students who took the ACT. So it's describing the population. So it's a parameter because it is based on all of the SAT takers, which is the population that you're studying. We'll call them SAT takers. There we go. So that's our reasoning. Now let's look at the next one. So a survey of 1,060 women ages 20 to 29 in the U.S. found that the standard deviation of their heights, so the average distance from the average or the mean, is about 2.6 inches. Is the standard deviation of the heights a parameter or a statistic? So does that mean, is it describing the whole population of women or just a subset? So what I notice is that it describes right here the survey that it's women and then a particular set of women, so ages 20 to 29. So that means that this number is describing a certain sample of the population of women, so it's a statistic. So we would say that this is a statistic, and that's because the survey is a subset, or the survey takers, because the survey, and in this case the survey takers, is a subset of the population of women in the U.S. So women in the U.S. All right. So again, a parameter describes an entire population, and it's a numerical description. A statistic just describes a sample. So now do the independent practice, and then come back and pause the video, do the independent practice, and then come back and check your answers. So on number 1, our population is all the retail gas outlets. And then the sample is the 800 retail gas outlets that were called. Number 2, the population is all the shoppers in the U.S., and then the sample is those 4,464 shoppers who were surveyed. And then if we wanted to talk about information about them, that those people surveyed spent an average of $407.02 during that time. All right, on number 3, so we're looking as to whether this numerical description is a parameter or a statistic. So remember, parameter describes a population, statistics describes a sample. So on number 3, that is a statistic because it's the average salary figured on a subset of the population. So notice it said some. That's the key word that I saw. Number 4, it's a parameter because it says 53% of the senators, so it's based on the population of all the senators, not just a portion of them. And then on number 5, that is also a parameter because that percent is figured on the population of all the students. And then finally on number 6, how do you see it? So the population is the majors of students at a university, so what they're studying in the sample is those who are studying chemistry.